Hello and welcome to the afternoon UEA Journalism News. A year since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, we will be looking at the impact this 21st century European war has had on our globe. So what has it been like moving to the UK from Ukraine? Well, our reporter Liberty Corrie spoke to Christina, who fled Ukraine last year, to find out how her life has changed.
According to Statista, there are currently over 160,000 Ukrainians seeking refuge here in the UK. I spoke to Christina. This is her story.
I came here with my daughter and a cat. We were lucky enough to find a wonderful family, Alison and Rob, who offered us accommodation. They became not only good friends for us, they became our family. We have been living in their house since May last year.
Christina is now living on a farm in a small village in Suffolk.
Near there are fields where pheasants, deer, hares, foxes and other wild animals. This cozy countryside help us feel comfortable and safe.
She told me how Alison and Rob helped her with everything. Rob met Christina in Calais and brought her and her daughter back to England. She told me how hospitable they were in supporting their transition to the UK.
After arriving a few days of rest, the family helped us in everything. Get help from the state, open a bank account, find a job, get a card for a mobile phone. Until we had our own earnings, they helped us with food. They also introduced us for friends, as for why we had a friend who teaches us English.
The Office for National Statistics have said that from August last year, 4 in 10 Ukrainian refugees are now in work. Christina was a lawyer in Ukraine, but she is not currently practicing law here in England.
Circumstances decided everything for us.
Christina still has family in Ukraine. She told me how she never expected to live and work here, and that she misses her home.
In general, I like in the UK, but I'm at home a lot and I want to go back there.
Christina has now lived and worked in the UK for 9 months. When asked about her future, she told me how she didn't know what was going to happen next.
In my thoughts a year ago, the future looked more certain. Now it is difficult to plan something because of the events taking place in Ukraine. I want to return to my home, return to the profession, feel happy and safe in my country. And after the victory, I hope that my English friends will visit me in my hometown.
Rob and Alison have extended Christina's stay for another 6 months, but Defence Secretary Ben Wallace warns the war could last another year. No one really knows what's going to happen next. Liberty Corrie, UEA Journalism.
Well, in the past year, many lives have been changed due to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Many lives have been lost and people uprooted. Our data journalist, Jack McLean, has been looking at the stats.
Recently, Ukraine's president addressed Parliament during his visit to London. During Russia's invasion of Ukraine, there has been 7.1 thousand civilian deaths, including 438 children. This has led for President Volodymyr Zelensky to ask for more planes and weapons.
I appeal to you and the world with simple and yet most important words. Combat aircrafts for Ukraine. Wings for freedom.
The reason for this is due to the total aircraft that Russia have is 4,182, whilst Ukraine only have 312. If you break that down into fighter planes, Russia have 773, Ukraine only 69, and attack helicopters, Russia have 537, where Ukraine only have 33. This is why more help is needed, but Zelensky has already praised the UK for their help.
From the first seconds and minutes of the full-scale war, Great Britain, you extended your helping hand when the world had not yet come to understand how to react.
But are the UK helping enough? The amount of refugees that the UK have taken in are 161,400. That makes the United Kingdom sixth in the list of countries that have taken in refugees. Both Poland and Germany have taken over 1 million Ukrainians in. Poland is about 1.3 times bigger than United Kingdom for surface maths, but using GDPR per capita, which is basically how rich a company is, it's the total value of goods of services for final use by residents, producers in economy, but to the everyday Joe, it is basically how rich a country is. The UK is the 14th richest in Europe, whilst Poland are the 27th. Well, whilst we're looking at finances, what are they doing when they're in the countries? How much do the refugees get? Well, Germany again lead this, giving every Ukrainian refugee in accommodation about €449 per month. Ireland are a close behind on €412. The UK, though, sits 12th on this list, offering just below €200 a month. Poland, although, do sit bottom, with just over €15 a month. Well, do the UK need to do more then? I asked the people of Norwich what they think we should do.
Oh, definitely. Like, we're so bad with immigration in this country. Like, we definitely need to, like, just open up a little bit more and let people in, because it's just ridiculous. Like, definitely more money and more funds, like, help out as many people as we can, really.
Yes, I think we need to be doing more. I think it's shocking that we aren't doing as much as Poland to help.
Yes, I think it is vital that the UK does as much as it possibly can to help out people affected by the Ukraine-Russia war. A lot of the people affected didn't have a choice. Well, everyone didn't have a choice in what was happening. So yeah, it's vital that the UK does as much as we can to help out the people that are affected by the war.
That was our reporter, Jack McLean. So, how has the invasion evolved from a year ago? Our reporter, Alex Adams, has been finding out.
I'm stood outside Norwich City Hall, where on the 24th of February 2022, the City Hall had been lit with colours of blue and yellow as Russia launched its invasion on Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin said the motives behind his invasion were to demilitarise the country in order to protect Russia. Russian troops would soon reach Kiev's outskirts, but to strong resistance from the Ukraine president, Volodymyr Zelensky, who would send a message saying he remains in charge.
Если драка неизбежна, нужно бить первым.
On the 16th of March, Russia would strike the port city of Mariupol, where civilians had been taking shelter, killing hundreds of people in one of the war's deadliest attacks. The withdrawal of forces revealed hundreds of bodies of civilians left in the streets, many of them showing signs of torture, which would prompt world leaders to say Russia should be held accountable for their war crimes. On the 16th of May, the last Ukrainian stronghold in Mariupol agreed to surrender after a 3-month-long siege, leaving the total of 7,000 civilian deaths and a further 12,000 being injured. Vladimir Putin would address the nation on the anniversary of the conflict of the Ukraine, with a speech explaining his invasion motivations. The Russian dictator, in his near 2-hour speech, would place the blame on the West for starting the war in Ukraine, by saying the West had military information and economic aggression against Russia. Putin would also go on to say, "We aren't fighting Ukrainian people. Ukraine has become hostage of the Kiev regime and its Western masters, which have effectively occupied the country." Over 8 million Ukrainian citizens have fled the country seeking refuge since the invasion. I spoke with Yulia to see what fleeing her country has been like for her family.
At the same time, I tried to keep it because for our daughter, I didn't want to know all what was happening, and you tried to behave normal.
The future of the Ukraine invasion is still in doubt, with cost lives and war efforts likely to continue for many years. Alex Adams, UEA Journalism.
Vitalik Denyes, a Ukrainian photographer, says the political sphere has shifted and many politicians in Ukraine have taken a step back from politics since the initial invasion and have joined the military. They are planning on returning to politics once the war is over.
All the politicians who were providing populistic, non-populist, have turned into just volunteering. The political life right now in Ukraine, it's not in the field of political battles.
Well, I think it's fair to say that Ukraine was the hot topic 1 year ago when the Russian invasion began. But since then, it has been talked about less and less. Other pressing issues have taken over the headlines. But has this made people forget about the crisis in Ukraine? Our reporter Owen Preston took to the streets of Norwich to find out what the general public had to say.
It's been a year since the conflict in Ukraine took over headlines. According to Google Trends, the topic of Ukraine is at an all-time low in the news since the invasion. Even though the invasion is still ongoing, has the media started to forget about the mayhem ensuing less than 2,000 miles away? So of course the conflict in Ukraine has almost come out of the media cycle quite a bit recently. Do you feel this is because as a society we don't really think about it as much, and do you think it's made the general public less aware of what's happening?
I think it is dipped quite under the radar. Like, I haven't heard much major news from it. Obviously you hear like the odd bits, but especially on social media there isn't much like raising awareness.
I use Reddit a lot, and there's still a lot of posts about it on Reddit, updates, and there's a few dedicated subreddits to it which I come across. I don't seek them out, but yeah, I would argue that it's generally fallen off.
I don't 100% agree. I think it's still in the news for people who are concerned about it. I still monitor it, and there was a good actual documentary, a full-length documentary on the telly last night about it.
I wouldn't say I was heavily invested in it, but I wouldn't argue that that's because of the drop-off in the news. I think it is just kind of, you're seeing the same things again and again.
Do you think that we as a society could do more to bring it back into the limelight, because it is still very much a pressing issue?
Yeah, especially with on the media, people kind of treat it as a trend to, they post photos on their stories, oh, we need to raise awareness, we need to help these people, and then once it stops being a trend, everyone just forgets.
I don't know, I think that's the way that the news works. I think that everything eventually falls off. Things happen, and what happens is society just gets bored of them and moves on.
It hasn't changed, they're still in crisis. We still need to do something all about that.
Yeah, I do think there is always a cycle in news. Obviously, when something's new, as it were, in news, it's a shock, it's more of an interest. The general public get more used to things, and of course other things come along.
But I think I do see probably more updates on it than I would if I were to just stick to the news.
We've heard what the people of Norwich have to say about the topic of Ukraine becoming a forgotten one. But what do you guys think? Owen Preston, UEA Journalism.
Well, really interesting report there from Owen. But that is all we have time for here on this UEA Journalism Ukrainian special. Remember, you can keep up to date with all the latest news by heading over to ueajournalism.co.uk. But for now, have a very good afternoon.